The architect of the ephemeral. An in-depth analysis of Ivan Aivazovsky's painting techniques. Ivan Konstantinovich Aivazovsky, 1817 to 1900, stands as one of the most prolific and celebrated Russian painters, renowned almost exclusively for his breathtaking marine landscapes. His body of work, comprising over 6,000 paintings, is a testament to an unwavering dedication to depicting the sea in all its myriad moods, from serene sunlit calms to furious, tempest-tossed storms. Yet Aivazovsky's unparalleled ability to capture the fleeting, dynamic essence of the sea was not merely a matter of observation, but the result of a meticulously developed and highly individualistic repertoire of painting techniques. This analysis will delve into the multifaceted methods that allowed Aivazovsky to transform oil on canvas into shimmering water, crashing waves, and ethereal light, establishing him as an undisputed master of maritime art. The academic foundation and romantic spirit. Aivazovsky's technical prowess began with a solid academic foundation. Graduating from the Imperial Academy of Arts in St. Petersburg, he absorbed the principles of classical drawing, composition, and color theory. His early teachers, including Maxim Vorobyov and Philippe Tanner, instilled in him a rigorous approach to perspective, chiaroscuro, and the careful rendering of natural phenomena. This classical training provided the bedrock upon which he built his distinctive style. However, Aivazovsky's artistic spirit was deeply aligned with the Romantic movement. Romanticism, with its emphasis on emotion, the sublime power of nature, and the dramatic interplay of light and shadow, resonated profoundly with his chosen subject matter. He sought not merely to reproduce the sea but to convey its awe-inspiring majesty, its capacity for both destructive power and ethereal beauty. This inherent romanticism informed his technical choices, leading him to prioritize evocative effect over strict photorealistic detail, allowing for a degree of idealization and dramatic license. Crucially, unlike many of his contemporaries, Aivazovsky largely abandoned direct outdoor sketching after his initial studies, choosing instead to paint almost exclusively from memory and imagination in his studio. This unique approach dictated many of his subsequent technical innovations. The unrivaled mastery of water, transparency, movement, and foam, the accurate rendering of water in all its forms was the cornerstone of Aivazovsky's technique. His genius lay in depicting not just the surface, but the perceived depth, translucence, and ceaseless motion of the sea. Achieving transparency and depth, glazing and layering. One of Aivazovsky's most crucial techniques for water was the systematic use of glazing. He applied multiple, exceptionally thin layers of transparent or semi-transparent oil paint, often diluted with various mediums, possibly including resins or varnishes, to enhance flow and luminosity. This process allowed light to penetrate the upper layers, reflect off underlying layers, and create a profound sense of depth and translucence, mimicking the way light interacts with real water. Underpainting. He often started with a warm, reddish-brown or ochre ground, which would subtly glow through cooler blues and greens, adding vibrancy and warmth to the water's cool tones. Building up colors. He would then systematically build up the desired color of the water, deep ultramarines, Prussian blues, viridian greens, and emeralds for deep ocean, transitioning to lighter aquamarines and turquoise for shallows. The multiple glazes allowed for nuanced color shifts that are impossible with single opaque applications. Varying opacity. While many layers were transparent, he would strategically introduce slightly more opaque passages for areas of greater density or where light was blocked, creating a dynamic interplay between clarity and obscurity. Depicting movement and form, brushwork and direction. Aivazovsky's ability to imbue his water with a palpable sense of motion was unparalleled. He achieved this through a sophisticated manipulation of brushwork and brush direction. Curved and sweeping strokes. For the swells and undulations of the sea, he employed long, sweeping, and often curved brushstrokes that followed the natural contours of the waves. These strokes were not merely outlines but suggested volumetric forms, giving the waves a three-dimensional presence. Directional brushwork. The direction of his brushstrokes was critical. For receding waves or calm stretches, strokes were often horizontal or gently diagonal, and for breaking waves, or turbulent areas, they became more turbulent, often overlapping and crisscrossing, conveying the chaotic energy. Suggesting undertow. Subtle variations in color and value within the same wave form suggested the complex currents and undertows beneath the surface, making the water feel alive and dynamic. The illusion of foam and spray, impasto and scumbling. The frothy crests of waves and the misty spray thrown up by crashing water are hallmarks of Aivazovsky's marines. He used a combination of impasto and scumbling to achieve these effects. Impasto for highlights. For the brightest, most illuminated parts of breaking foam, Aivazovsky applied paint thickly, impasto, directly from the brush or even with a palette knife. This raised texture caught the light. He often used pure lead white or zinc white, sometimes with a touch of raw sienna or yellow for warmth, or a hint of blue or gray for cooler, shadowed foam. Scumbling for mist and soft foam. For the more diffused misty effects of spray or the soft fading edges of foam, he employed scumbling. This technique involves lightly dragging a brush with a small amount of relatively dry, opaque paint over a dry or semi-dry underlying layer. The paint catches on the high points of the canvas texture, creating a broken, ethereal effect that perfectly mimics the translucence and diffusion of mist. Wet on wet for merging effects. In some areas, particularly where foam transitions into the main body of water, he likely used wet-on-wet techniques, allowing the white paint to subtly blend and merge with the blues and greens of the water, creating a softer, more organic transition. The luminous articulation of light. Aivazovsky was arguably more a painter of light than a painter of the sea. The sea served as his canvas to explore the dramatic interplay of illumination and shadow. Whether it was the golden glow of a sunset, the silvery sheen of moonlight, or the piercing flash of lightning, light was always the central protagonist in his narratives. Defined light sources and their effects. Every Aivazovsky painting possesses a clear and often dramatic light source. Unlike many artists who diffuse light, he pinpointed its origin: a rising or setting sun, a full moon breaking through clouds, or a flash of lightning. This clarity allowed him to meticulously depict how light interacts with and transforms every element in the scene. Reflection versus transmission. He expertly rendered the difference between light reflecting off the surface of the water, creating shimmering paths of light, the moonlight path or sun path, and light transmitting through the water, revealing its transparency and depth. Atmospheric perspective of light. Light was also used to create depth through atmospheric perspective. Distant light sources, or light filtered through mist and haze, would appear softer, less intense, and often cooler in tone due to atmospheric interference. Chiaroscuro for dramatic effect. Aivazovsky embraced chiaroscuro, the strong contrast between light and dark, to heighten the drama and emotional impact of his scenes. This was particularly evident in his storm paintings or moonlight seascapes. Dramatic silhouettes, ships, rocks, and figures were often silhouetted against brilliant light sources, drawing the eye to the focal point and emphasizing the vastness and power of nature by dwarfing the human element. Intensified highlights. The profound darkness of the surrounding environment made the illuminated areas, the crest of a breaking wave, a beam of moonlight, or a distant lighthouse, appear intensely bright and luminous. This contrast created a powerful sense of depth and focus. Capturing ephemeral glows. His ability to capture the fleeting glow of dawn, dusk, or moonlight was exceptional. He achieved this through subtle color transitions, meticulous blending of colors in the sky and on the water to mimic the gradual shift in light quality, for example, from deep indigo to soft violet to fiery orange in a sunset. Glazing from light source outward. Often, the brightest light source would be established with thick, pure pigments, whites, yellows, oranges, and then the surrounding light would be built up with progressively darker, transparent glazes, allowing the central brilliance to radiate outwards. The dynamics of sky and atmosphere. Beyond the water, Aivazovsky's skies are equally compelling, serving as dynamic backdrops that dictate the mood and light of the scene. Cloud formation and movement. His clouds are not static masses but living entities, indicating weather, wind direction, and light conditions. Variety of forms. He rendered a wide range of cloud types: towering cumulus that brings storm, wispy cirrus indicating fair weather, or heavy, dark stratus blanketing the sky. Modeling with light and shadow. Each cloud form was meticulously modeled with light and shadow, giving it volume and weight. For instance, the underside of storm clouds often received their deep, ominous hue from the reflection of the dark sea below, or from their own inherent density and the lack of direct light. Suggesting motion. Like his water, his clouds often reveal the direction of the wind through their elongated forms or fragmented edges, further enhancing the sense of movement and impending drama. Atmospheric effects. Aivazovsky masterfully depicted various atmospheric conditions that influenced visibility and light. Mist and fog, achieved through delicate, thin washes of muted colors, allowing the background to recede softly and creating a sense of mystery or isolation. Rain and spray, suggested through streaks of paint that blend into the background, creating the illusion of falling precipitation, often combined with scumbled effects for localized spray. Horizon blending. He expertly blended sky and sea at the horizon, particularly in calm scenes or those with distant haze, creating a seamless transition that emphasizes vastness. This was often done using wet-on-wet techniques for smooth gradients. Composition, perspective, and scale. Aivazovsky's compositions, though varied, consistently served to emphasize the grandeur of nature and the insignificance of humanity in its presence. Low horizon lines. A characteristic feature of many of his paintings is a relatively low horizon line. This simple compositional choice dramatically increases the expanse of the sky, allowing for more emphasis on atmospheric effects, cloud formations, and the overall monumental scale of the natural world. Diagonal lines and movement. He frequently employed strong diagonal lines, particularly in his storm scenes. The slopes of towering waves, the angle of a ship's mast in distress, or the path of a lightning bolt. These diagonals create tension, motion, and a sense of dynamic instability, guiding the viewer's eye through the tumultuous scene. Scale and the human element. While his primary subject was the sea, Aivazovsky often included small human figures, ships, or boats. These elements, though tiny in comparison to the vastness of the ocean and sky, were vital for providing a sense of scale, narrative, and emotional resonance. They underscore the precariousness of human life against the might of nature, or conversely, the triumph of human endeavor. Their diminutive size heightened the feeling of awe and the sublime. Linear and aerial perspective. His academic training ensured a sound understanding of both linear and aerial perspective. Linear perspective was used to accurately depict ships and their rigging, ensuring they receded convincingly into the distance. Aerial perspective, however, was crucial for creating depth in his landscapes, with distant objects appearing less distinct, cooler in tone, and lighter in value due to the intervening atmosphere. Color palette and application. Aivazovsky's palette was rich and varied, yet always harmonized to convey the specific mood and light of his scene. Dominant hues and accents. Blues and greens. Unsurprisingly, variations of blue, ultramarine, cobalt, Prussian blue, and green, viridian, emerald green, formed the backbone of his palette for the sea and sky. Warm accents. He masterfully introduced warm accents, yellows, oranges, reds, and browns, for sunsets, sunrises, and the subtle glow of distant lights or reflections. These warm tones, when juxtaposed with the cool blues and greens, created vibrant contrasts and heightened luminosity. Grays and purples. In his storm scenes, he skillfully mixed complex grays and purples with blues and browns to convey the ominous weight of storm clouds and the churning, bruised quality of the water. Layering and transparency. As discussed, glazing was paramount. He avoided muddying his colors by applying thin, distinct layers, allowing the luminosity of underlying colors to show through. This technique prevented the flatness often seen in opaque paint application. Strategic use of white. White paint was critical but used with precision. Pure white was reserved for the brightest highlights, the crest of a foam-capped wave, the direct reflection of the sun or moon, or a burst of lightning. Elsewhere, white was mixed with other colors to create subtle variations in value and hue, ensuring that the true highlights popped with maximum brilliance. Brushwork and texture. Aivazovsky's brushwork, while appearing effortless, was remarkably varied and meticulously controlled, adapted to the specific texture or effect he wished to achieve. Diverse strokes for diverse effects. Broad sweeping strokes. For the expansive areas of sky and calm sea, he used wide brushes and sweeping strokes to create smooth, seamless transitions and a sense of vastness. Controlled, detailed strokes. In the case of intricate elements such as the rigging, distant figures, or the delicate structures of breaking waves, he employed finer brushes and precise, controlled strokes. Dabbing and impasto. For the frothy texture of foam and the scattered nature of spray, he used a dabbing motion and thick impasto, allowing the paint to build up on the surface and catch the light. Dragging and dry brush. In the case of subtle reflections, the texture of distant land, or the soft edges of clouds, he sometimes used dry brush techniques, allowing the texture of the canvas to play a role in the final effect. The illusion of speed and spontaneity. Despite his meticulous layering, many of Aivazovsky's paintings convey an astonishing sense of speed and spontaneity, almost an alla prima wet-on-wet in one sitting feeling. This was a testament to his confident hand, his rigorous practice, and his ability to work rapidly when executing a vision from memory. He learned to lay down marks with decisive confidence, minimizing overworking that could deaden the colors or flatten the forms. The role of memory and imagination. Perhaps the most defining technique of Aivazovsky was his reliance on memory and imagination. He famously stated, "The movement of living elements is elusive to the brush. To paint lightning, a gust of wind, or the splash of a wave, one must paint them from memory, just as the composer writes his music. I do not paint from nature, but from memory." This approach fundamentally shaped his technical process. Internalized observation. His countless hours spent observing the sea, often from his studio window or during his extensive travels, were deeply internalized. He absorbed the nuances of light, movement, and atmospheric effects, storing them in his mind as a visual library. Idealization and drama. Painting from memory allowed him to distill the essence of the sea, to heighten its drama, and to create idealized or composite scenes that might not exist precisely in nature but felt profoundly true to its spirit. It permitted him to combine elements from different observations to create a more potent narrative. Speed and efficiency. Once a mental image was formed, he could execute it with remarkable speed and efficiency, sometimes completing a large canvas size in a matter of days. This speed, in turn, contributed to the fresh, vibrant quality of his work, preventing the paint from becoming overworked and leaden. Focus on effect over detail. By not being tied to direct observation, he could prioritize the overall effect, the luminosity, the motion, the emotional impact, rather than getting bogged down in minuscule, unnecessary detail. Evolution and consistency. Over his long career, Aivazovsky's core techniques remained remarkably consistent. While his early works might show a slightly more academic rendering, and his later works occasionally became bolder in brushwork, the underlying principles of glazing for luminosity, impasto for foam, clear light sources, and reliance on memory remained constant. His evolution was more one of refinement and increased confidence, allowing him to endlessly vary his subject within the marine genre while maintaining his distinctive artistic voice. Conclusion: the architect of the ephemeral. Ivan Aivazovsky's painting techniques were a sophisticated synthesis of academic discipline, romantic sensibility, and a unique reliance on internalized observation. His unparalleled mastery of water was achieved through meticulous glazing, dynamic brushwork, and the strategic application of impasto and scumbling for foam. His profound understanding of light allowed him to articulate dramatic chiaroscuro and capture the fleeting, ethereal glow of sun or moon. His compositional choices, characterized by low horizons and dramatic diagonals, underscored the sublime power of nature, while his selective inclusion of human elements provided scale and narrative depth. Ultimately, Aivazovsky was not merely a painter of seascapes, he was an architect of the ephemeral, building entire worlds of light, water, and emotion from memory and pigment. His techniques allowed him to freeze moments of immense natural power and delicate beauty, transforming the volatile, ever-changing sea into timeless masterpieces that continue to captivate and inspire. His legacy lies not just in the sheer volume of his work, but in the brilliant technical ingenuity that enabled him to render the ungraspable essence of the ocean, securing his place as one of the greatest marine artists in history.